Tony Curtis is here. We're just getting into the last gallop, the last furlong. And so I'm going to hand you over to Tony. I think you're going to sing a song, are you?
I'm going to say a poem for you, and then I'm going to sing. I don't want to tell them about it first.
Okay. I'll leave it in his capable hands.
We're on the hill in. I just thinking this morning, I was thinking that on Monday, it's Dante's birthday. Now, you needn't send him a birthday card because he's dead. But I was reading in this morning's Guardian, like you do, that in Dante's time, books were sold in apothecary stores.
Perfect place for them.
See? Literature as medicine, as healing. And myself and Theo once went to the Bishop's Library in Armagh. And over the door in Latin it said, well, my friend Theo told me it said, as in a rough translation, the medicine chest for the soul. And this morning, with all the people doing the poetry, I thought, the democracy of it, it's fantastic how it's good for all that stuff. And it must have been this day last year, it was coming up to Paula's birthday, 55. And I was thinking to myself, I must write her a poem for my birthday. And the poem was inspired by the fact that some politician said, when asked about the arts and poetry, oh yes, the tourists love it. And you live there going, and I was thinking of Paula, the care, the craft, the gift that she puts into making her poems, as do all the other poets here. So I'll read it for everybody today, and it's called The Hunter. This morning, I called to where she is wintering out, in a timber hut by the sea's edge. Everything is grey and leans away from the wind, except for the stovepipe, which is straight as a tall tree. I knocked, but nobody was home. The teapot was still warm, the settlebed unmade. A book lay open on the table. Captain Ahab and the lives of Nantucket sailors. I imagined her further on down the beach, somewhere beyond the dunes, reading the waves, the sky, the islands, hunting that fierce, featherless, solitary little creature, so benignly called a poem. Right, now. My roadie, Brian, will just set me up. I'm going to do this poem because you might all know it, and if you all know it, you can all join in. Ready? It was these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Then you all go, ooh, ooh, to watch his woods fill up with snow. I lost my voice. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the wood and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. And you all go, ooh, ooh, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. And you all go, ooh, ooh, easy wind and downy flake. woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. Miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Ooh, ooh. Miles to go before I sleep. Ooh, ooh. Miles to go before I sleep.
And Theo Dorgan now, who's been assisting on sound and has been assisting me from the minute I met him 26 years ago. I haven't looked back or forward or sideways. I'm afraid to, yeah. So it's a very great pleasure to introduce my own beloved Theo Dorgan.
And in pure mercy, I'll say one poem only. Nosig me don hartnedig, don the Michael Hartnett. The title of the poem is Michael, Michael, because in the last years of his life, nobody ever addressed him as Michael. It was always, Michael, Michael, will you stop drinking? And he wouldn't, because when I tackled him with it, towards the end of his life, he said, my poems are written. And I always thank Providence I had the good manners to accept it as he meant it. And so, Michael, Michael, because no poetry reading should be without his gifted and gifting presence. Michael, I was on the East Link in a taxi when the nurse in my ear said, soft and sad, I'm afraid your friend is dead. A wind out of Munster shook the bridge. We stopped and I stepped to the parapet. October flowed in the black Liffey below, ebb tide by the slanting buoys. A wind out of Munster shook the bridge. I closed my eyes, went down and in for O'Bruder, O'Rahele, that stiff-eyed company of the living still. A wind out of Munster shook the bridge. A wren darted from hedge to hedge, and they followed it with their eyes, hands lifted in welcome. A wind out of Munster shook the bridge. The wren became a wraith, became a stately air, tuned in the bony hands of a watchful piper. A wind out of Munster shook the bridge. What shall we do for timber? The last of the woods are down, and our quiet master down. I got back in, we drove to the toll. A wind out of Munster shook the bridge. The driver paid and asked, was I all right? Would we go on? Drive on, I said. Drive on. He was a good man. And the wind behind us shook the bridge. Snake.
My glasses, but I have this. I got them on me now. So we're winding down now. I'm just going to read a poem, and Susan McKeown is going to give us another song. And there is an invitation, if anyone here, because I know it is a poet-rich audience, if any of the poets who've come as guests would themselves like to read a poem then and put it into the archive, we're very open to that. So the poem I'm going to read today is really for the library and for the archive, for all the librarians and archivists who work so hard to preserve our memory, our vital memory. And I know we've entered a new world of machine memory now in my lifetime. And this, of course, I mean, if you think that they had to worry about the little bookworms eating the books in the past, you haven't heard anything until you hear the dangers of link rot. I've been terrorised and terrified talking to the archivists and how frail and vulnerable virtual memory is. So this really is a meditation on that, and it's called The Solace of Artemis. And of course, Artemis was the great protectress in classical mythology of the wild. And even before that, she was connected in Aboriginal, I suppose, Aboriginal Greek worship, ritual with bears. So she's the great bear mother. I read that every polar bear alive today has mitochondrial DNA from a common mother, an Irish brown bear who once roved out across the last ice age, and I am comforted. It has been a long, hot morning with the children of the machine, their talk of memory, of buying it cheap. But I, memory keeper by trade, scan time coded in the golden hive mind of eternity. I burn my books. I burn my whole archive, a blaze that sears synapses flaring cell to cell, where memory sleeps in the wax hexagonals of my doomed and melting comb. I see him loping towards me across the vast ice field to where I wait in the cave mouth, dreaming my cubs about the den, my honeyed ones, smelling of snow and sweet oblivion. I just want to say before I leave this place how grateful I am to the library, to the staff, and to I think Eugene Roach is around as well in special collections, who so helpful during my time here. And thank you all for your patience at what has been a marathon poetry reading this morning. And I'm going to invite Susan up to finish with a song. But as I said, there is an open invitation after that for anyone who would like to come up and for those of us who will be around. There's also tea and coffee across the way until 3 o'clock. They're serving refreshments. So thank you all very much for your attention today. And I'll pass you over to Susan McKeown.
Thank you. Because I lived half my life in America, this is just like another homecoming. It comes in waves, and Nine Bright Shiners launch was another of them. So I know I express the wishes of everyone in the room when I say thank you, Paula, for having us all here. It's just a privilege to be here as your guest today. In America, you can never get a cup of tea at a poetry reading. It's always coffee. So it's lovely. So I'm going to do 2 very short songs. One I wrote, I was living in New York, and it was after September 11th. I came back to New York on the 14th. It was the first day you could fly back. And not long after that, I was finishing up an album, and I wrote this song, and I had read... The print gets smaller. I didn't understand it. I think I'd be all right. I'm just going to read a couple of lines of Yeats that inspired the song in part, because everything, of course, was falling apart. He said, "A while ago, I was on the train, and getting near Sligo, a man got into the carriage and began to play the fiddle. I wish that happened more often today. The sound filled me with the strangest emotions. I seemed to hear a voice of lamentation, but of the golden age. It told me that we are imperfect, incomplete, and no longer like a perfectly woven web, but like a bundle of cords knotted together and flung into a corner. It said that the world was once all perfect and kindly, and that still the perfect and kindly world existed, but buried like a mass of roses under many spadefuls of earth." And the song is very quick. My introductions are usually longer. And then I'm going to sing, just for the year that's in it, the song that my great-grandmother wrote in 1916 and was published with a drawing of the GPO on the cover of it. And I just discovered it when I came home in 2013. So I'm very honoured to be able to sing it when I'm asked to sing at things this year. So the first one is called prophecy. And then her song is called Hoist the Flag. Her name was Angela Clark, and she married Orion. So, Angela Ryan. I swear by the blood running red, by the stars in my eyes, by the charm above our bed, what's done is done, and we will ever be lamenting. No words can heal or bring you ease. Keep the flame flickering. Don't let the darkness win. Keep the flame flickering. Don't let the darkness win. And if there really is a kind and perfect world, it's a buried mass of roses under spadefuls of earth. And we must dance and we must sing and keep the little flame flickering. Keep the flame flickering. Don't let the darkness win. Keep the flame flickering. Don't let the darkness win. Hoist up our flag, our banner true, our country's freedom now to gain, and righteous men shall make our land the foremost one of freedom's train. From many parts come faithful hearts, the olden glories of our land, to set on high before they die, and leave for aye this nation grand. Hear the loud ringing cheers for the brave volunteers as they proudly march along to save our country's honor and her faith and hope and song. Hear the loud ringing cheers for the brave volunteers as they proudly march along to save our country's honor and her faith and hope and song. For era's right, all foes despite, the boys will band and work again, all foreign sway to crush for aye, our country's freedom to sustain. To hear our own beloved tongue throughout the north, south, east, and west, and proudly show our ancient foe we mean our age-long right to rest. Hear the loud ringing cheers for the brave volunteers as they proudly march along to save our country's honor and her faith and hope and song. Hear the loud ringing cheers for the brave volunteers as they proudly march along to save our country's honor and her faith and hope and song. Good of my gift. Thank you, Paula.